What's up, Mick? Man, it's been about like 1 or 2 years that you've been off, man. Where you been at it, and what you been up to?
It's the boxing game. You got to take the good with the bad. Nevertheless, I should be back soon this summer, and I'm real excited about it.
Okay, what you been doing since you been off?
I always pretty much stay physically fit, and I do a lot of business and real estate. My brother got a real estate company, so we've been doing a lot of that. Just staying positive, just pretty much weathering the storm, but I'm ready to come get back in and capture another world title.
So you say like when you say storm, like what's some of the stuff you've been dealing with in the past, couple years?
It's just politics, man. It's anytime you in the business like sports or entertainment, man, it's a lot of self interest. It's a lot of it's a lot of good and bad, man. I don't point fingers, but you dealing with in $1 billion business, so it's gonna be some it's gonna be some beefs, it's gonna be some problems and stuff like that. But I'm just the kind of person that try to find a solution instead of looking at problems. I think it's always just looking for a solution instead of a problem. So I think soon I'll be back on track and get rolling.
So when you come back, what are some of your goals, and what are some of the steps you want to take coming back in after going through the storm with different stuff? What would you do different now coming back?
Well, first thing first, I got to get a little bit active. But I don't, I want some real fights though, man. I get bored. I ain't a bully, so maybe just one little. I pretty much would fight anybody really coming back, as long as I got enough time to train. I'm about that action, so I'm pretty much ready to get back in title contention by the fall. Get a big fight this summer, and get back into the big leagues.
What was it like first meeting Floyd, first getting with TMT, and what's some of the perks that you seen with them?
I met Floyd when I was a kid. I was a teenager. I was like 17 years old, and we met, and he took a liking to me. He liked the way I fight, and he had goals on turning me and my brother at the time professional. But back then, I didn't quite want to turn pro yet. I wanted to make the Olympic team coming up in a couple years. So we just always kept a relationship. We got pretty cool. We kept a relationship. Then my brother ended up maybe a year or so later. He ended up in a spontaneous way. He ended up moving out to Vegas. Took a one-way flight with $200 and just bet on himself on faith and just went out there, man. I didn't even know he left. He called and told me one day that it was wintertime in Cleveland, and he told me like, man, I was calling him. I ain't talked to him in a couple of days. I'm just thinking maybe at his girl house or he been at his at his girls or something for a couple of days. But I was calling him, and then he finally called me back and was like, I asked him what he was doing. He said, I'm outside in the pool. I'm like, man, you gonna get pneumonia? It's snowing outside. But he like, oh no, I'm in Las Vegas. I thought he was lying, but then he proved to me that he was in Vegas. He sent me a picture and stuff like that. And he told me he was out there with Floyd. He ended up moving with him and everything out there. And since then, our relationship been history. Like pretty much, that's how they ended up like really forming things. He ended up moving out there, and at that time, I was still kind of going through the Olympic trials and stuff like that. Then I made the Olympic team. I ended up catching pneumonia. I actually won the Olympic trials, and then after I couldn't compete in the Olympics, I had to take some time off because I was sick for quite a while, and I ended up moving out to Las Vegas as well, and started training with his dad. My brother started training with his dad in 2003. We always had goals since the '90s. Actually, my brother got one of the best prophecies on Floyd Mayweather. Y'all to see the video on the proof. I ain't gonna say what it is right now, but he is the first person ever, probably outside of his family, anybody that knew him real close, to predict how good Floyd was going to be when he was an amateur. But that was my brother's favorite fighter while he was still an amateur in the Olympics before nobody knew him. So it was basically like a spiritual thing. Like, how did he know, looking at him as an amateur in the Olympics, he came and told me, like, it's this guy that can beat Shane Mosley and all these guys that was already champions. Like, and so that was like, man, it ain't no way you could predict that. And we got proof, y'all will see it a little bit later, but we got proof on that. So I just felt like it was meant to be. I felt like it was meant to be, man, just the way a lot of stuff happened. Y'all gonna see a lot of it, in the documentary I got coming out soon. You'll see a lot of it coming out, but we just stayed in touch. My brother was living out there. I moved out there and started training with Floyd Mayweather Sr. as well. And it pretty much been history. It's been a bumpy road, in the past few years, but, it ain't nothing personal. It's business.
So, Mick, a lot of people don't know this, but two of the biggest names in the sport of boxing on the management and promoter side, Al Haymon and Don King, they grew up in the same neighborhood as you. One of the poorest neighborhoods in the city. How you feel about that? And is that motivation to you?
Oh, it definitely was. Well, number one, it's kind of ironic and funny because my grandfather, he was a boxer. He was a Golden Glove finalist, a bantamweight back in the day. He grew up with Don King. They actually used to run together and stuff like that. Some of my other family members grew up with Al Haymon. I took that as huge motivation because it's little opportunity where we come from. It's not like being from like a big city like New York or LA. It's a small, poor city. It's probably 300,000 people, but it's a ton of talent. We got a lot of legends from here. Some of them I still find out almost daily who's from Cleveland, but a lot of people kind of ashamed to represent, Cleveland pretty much. But yeah, it's been a huge motivation just to know the fact that I feel like it's meant to be. Like, what's the odds of these guys? They both graduated from the same high school right on the corner of my street, So when I found that out, I'm like, man, God definitely it had to be some kind of boxing concoction in the air or something hovering over the neighborhood because, dudes barely even make it to past a teenager period without being dead or in jail. But, I'm blessed. I had a good family, and just pretty much stayed focused, man. And people like Al Haymon definitely motivated me because he was always a great businessman, and not only did he do great things in boxing and built the richest fighter in the history of boxing, I just felt like he gave me a lot of faith. Just because I always knew, like, it got to be just meant to be, like, for guys like that to come up right pretty much down the street from where I'm from, that definitely was a huge motivation for me.
So you got another guy from your neck of the woods, LeBron James. I hear that you met with him when he was a teenager.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because the first time we met, believe it or not, it was